however, Season 2 has come to an end, and the season finale was hot garbage. The hottest of garbage you can imagine. There were a couple good things. We'll just get those out of the way right away before we get into all of the bad. The scene with the dwarves, with Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth, Durin the Elder and Durin the Younger, despite it breaking lore, despite it being completely off Tolkien, the grid, right? It was actually a good scene. It was one of those rare gems in this mess that I was like, I really enjoyed that. Durin comes and pleads with his father to take the ring off, and he tells him this little story. He reminds him, he's like, remember when I was a kid and we would arm wrestle, and you would let me raise my arm just enough to make me think I could win before you slammed it back down. And he says, I'm begging with you to take the ring off. And his father says, dwarves do not beg. And then he breaks through the wall, and inside there's a huge cavern with veins of mithril running through it. And even Durin the Younger is like, holy crap, maybe Dad was right. What? Look at this. It's a lot of mithril. And as we know now, mithril isn't just a valuable precious metal. It has magical powers. Durin the Elder says, the only way you can see the mountain, or our mountain is where the way I do is wearing a ring. And Durin the Younger says, it's not our mountain. You taught me that. And the older Durin says, it could be. And then the Balrog shows up. Now, I know that, when it comes to the timelines and Durin's Bane and all that stuff, this is totally off. But they actually do an all right job at avoiding screwing that up, because Durin the Third takes his ring off and he tells his son, I didn't let you raise your arm. That was you growing stronger. It's a nice moment. This show is so badly written that when there's this nice exchange between father and son, it works. And I'm so surprised. I'm like, wow, that's like a scene written by a competent writer. What's happening here? I'm so surprised by this. And then Durin the Third takes his axe and charges and leaps at the Balrog, and it all caves back in. The Balrog doesn't actually come and destroy all the dwarves, but it's a good scene. It's a good visual of him jumping towards the Balrog, and that's about it. That's about the long and short of what's good in this episode. I will say that I continue to think Charlie Vickers is very, very talented and does a good job as Annatar, Sauron, that character. Despite, all the bad writing, I think he really, he squeezes water from a stone, because he is well cast in this role. And even with the silly Annatar wig, I find him quite compelling. People are making jokes and memes about him kind of crying. That scene with Celebrimbor had a lot of potential, and it was kind of wasted. I thought Sauron's supposed to come back to Eregion and torture Celebrimbor, and he gets the location of the 9 and the 7, but not of the 3. And I thought they could have really played with that a lot more. I did think that Celebrimbor telling him that the rings would destroy him, that he's a prisoner to them rather than their master, was good. I thought it was so goofy when he called him the Lord of the Rings. We said the thing. Oh, we said the thing. Yeah, I don't think anybody likes that. It's like when Walter White turned to Jesse and said, "You know what, Jesse? I think I'm Breaking Bad." I think it's nice in a way to imagine that Sauron was crying a little because he does sort of mourn the loss of Celebrimbor. I like the idea that Sauron, while evil, does think that he's doing the right thing and does have some admiration for the elves and does admire Galadriel and does admire Celebrimbor and would like for them to work for him he's the boss. They work for him, not as equals, but that he would prefer to twist all of them to do his bidding rather than to destroy them. And I think that that's portrayed well in that moment, but not explored well overall in the series. Part of this problem is Galadriel, though. There's a long extended duel between Galadriel and Annatar, mostly in Annatar form. He shapeshifts throughout. He becomes Halbrand, he becomes Celebrimbor, he becomes a different version of Galadriel. And the problem here is that while Vickers is quite good, Morfydd Clark is terribly miscast as Galadriel. She is too mousy. She is too petulant. Whenever she tries to have gravitas, her mousy little voice and her squinchy little face just makes her seem absurd, laughably absurd. She might be a great actor in other contexts, in other roles. But here as Galadriel, she is this tiny little... there were times, some of the facial expressions she was making in this episode, where I was laughing. And that's not the thing. They're not going for laughter here. I guarantee it. So, Vickers is just like perfect, I think. He's doing a great job. He's having a sword fight with someone who really looks like he should just pick her up and hold her while she like swings her fists around and he laughs. I mean, they just don't, like, this was supposed to be a battle where you're seeing this elven lady, this powerful elven queen fighting against this force of nature that, you know, the most powerful evil force left in Middle-earth after Morgoth's destruction of Morgoth. And it just felt like a little teenage girl swatting at flies, like trying to get him, and she nicks him once, and he's just toying with her. And that might have worked, but I don't know. For me, it seemed totally absurd. It was hard to watch. It was so cringy. Then he gets the 9 because they just fall out, and she jumps off a cliff to prevent him from getting the other ring. Now, I'm sorry, but if I were Sauron, I would just go down there and get it. I mean, I don't know if he's got the magic to fly or float down, but you could surely just like walk down there. She's not that far away. This is the guy who sends out his Nazgul and all his armies to find the One Ring a few thousand years later. Surely he could walk 100 yards, climb down a cliff, and grab the ring off of her broken body. Her shattered and broken body. Can you believe Galadriel's dead? No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't die. You know, just falling this enormous height and landing. At least she lands on a bed of moss. She's so lucky. She's stabbed with Morgoth's crown. What killed Sauron earlier, and she still manages to survive. And we get Elrond's arc complete because he's like, with our powers combined, we can heal her, Gil-galad. They really did the elves dirty these last couple episodes. Elves are supposed to be powerful, right? They have a innate magic about them. One elf can take on countless orcs. I mean, Legolas inspired fear in the orcs that encountered him. Just his presence. And yet these elves are just getting taken down like nothing. And easily captured. Elrond, Gil-galad, captured. Arondir took a sword through the chest last week, and he's just like, I'm fine, guys. That's how powerful elves are. Or how poorly these scripts are written, I'm not sure. It's just a mess. All the elven stuff. The dwarves show up in the nick of time to save them from the orcs. It's just all very contrived. The fast travel, the conveniences in the plot. When Adar is killed by the orc that we knew was going to betray him because it's been so telegraphed, that's a fine betrayal, but why do all the other orcs join in? What did Sauron do to convince them? Why did they go from one extreme to the other? We don't see that. We don't, and why does Galadriel just stand around when she just made peace with Adar, and she just stands there looking like an idiot while these orcs stab him to death? I mean, she's a warrior, right? And that's her ally now. Why didn't she grab her sword and run in there and kill all those orcs? She could kill them easily. She could have saved him. No? Well, the script tells us that is not what's going to happen. What else? Oh, we learned that the stranger is actually Gandalf, and that he picks that name, I guess, because the Stoors call him Grandalf a few times. And he's like, Gandalf is my name. That's what happens when you have third graders write your script. The only part of this storyline that I enjoyed was when Gandalf, now we know he's Gandalf, oh, so surprising, when he and Tom Bombadil sit down and they sing the Bombadil song. That was nice. The camera sort of pans out, starts to float up, and you think this is the end of the episode. They're ending with Gandalf and Tom Bombadil singing Tom Bombadillo, oh, Lola, Tom Dum Dum, Bum Bum Dum Bum Dillo. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That's a nice way to end it. And then they go on for like 20 more minutes. Ay, ay, ay. The Stoors and Nori and Poppy were attacked by the Tatooine guys last time we saw them, whenever that was. Now the stranger shows up, and the Dark Wizard shows up, who's totally not Saruman. Just like that was totally not Gandalf, and Halbrand was totally not Sauron. He knows Gandalf. He's like, hello, old friend, come with me. And there's like this repeat of basically Saruman and Gandalf in the Third Age, where Saruman wants to take power. It's so derivative. Gandalf's like, no, I won't go with you. I would rather walk around forever in the desert by myself with no water, naked. And the Dark Wizard's like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to throw a bunch of rocks on everybody then. And Gandalf's like, but wait, I can use my power now. And he stops it. But the place is destroyed. Well, it's not destroyed. You can see that a lot of the Stoor village is still intact. Many structures are still intact. It looks like you can go in some of the buildings. There's a lot of rocks everywhere. So naturally, they decide that they have to leave forever and become nomads, because picking up rocks is really hard. Like, it's really hard to pick up rocks and move them and clean up, it's much easier to abandon your generational home and just follow Nori and Poppy out into the desert. We know this is ending in the Shire. They're going to go to the Shire. It's Poppy who's, Nori's like, we got to fix this. We got to fix stuff. And Poppy's like, oh no. Oh, Sadok Burrows told me that some things, when they're broken, they're just broken forever. And you got to build something new. And she does this whole narration while a bunch of other montage goes on of different scenes. And then so the Stoors are like, well, Poppy says we can't fix it. So off we go. Bye, Grand Elf. Bye, Grand Elf. Bye, Grand Elf. I'm going to just touch on this again. Nori's like, they've never seen an elf before. And I'm like, that's right, because they're this isolated community in the middle of nowhere. They have no access to the outside world. So why are they so diverse? Again, they should all basically be brown-skinned, right? A desert people living in the desert for since time immemorial with no contact with the outside world. There's no hobbits from East Asia traveling through. There's no hobbits from Europe traveling through. They're just all in the desert and they haven't seen anything. So they should all basically look the same. They should be dark-skinned hobbits, right? Why is it so diverse? It's not scientific. And yes, how you make a fantasy world more realistic is to have it follow some of the tenets of science. The basic things that make worlds feel real and preserve the verisimilitude. The internal logic of the story has to work even when there is magic involved or zombies. So that's pretty much everything, I think. It was a long episode. Like I said, it wasn't all bad, but overall, I think this season was actually worse than season 1. I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch season 1, and I don't think I'm going to do that. But I think maybe it was also that I was still learning, I was still realizing how bad things would be in season 1, whereas in season 2, I was already prepared for it. So I just noticed everything that much quicker. There was less of Galadriel overall, and that was good. But, I forgot Numenor. Hold your horses. We have to go to Numenor. In Numenor, which should have been saved for at least season 3 or season 4, but they've been doing this Numenor plot. A scroll, Alfarazon brings a scroll to one of the leader of the faithful, and he reads it and he's like, Sauron, and then Alfarazon's back in charge again. He's back in charge again. Just like that. I thought that last week when Muriel swam in the water with the squid and came back out and everyone's like, she's the queen of the sea now. I thought that meant that she was in charge. But now Alfarazon's back in charge. Basically, the plot of Numenor has been Muriel saw petals fall from a tree, so she decided to help Galadriel. Then later, they see an eagle land on the windowsill, so they decide that Alfarazon's in charge. And then Muriel goes and swims with the squid so that people think she's in charge. And then they have this scroll about Sauron or something, which we don't know what it says. And now Alfarazon is in charge and he's rounding up the faithful and Elendil has to escape. Why did they even include the whole, swimming in the ocean, they're going to execute Elendil? Why did they include any of that? Why didn't they just have him escape and flee? He also gets Narsil, the sword that Aragorn eventually gets. And Muriel gives him that. And it's very much cribbed from the Lord of the Rings between Aragorn and Elrond. But that's neither here nor there. The point is this plot is just garbage. It just goes back and forth and back and forth. There's no development. It's all over the place. It's like they have no clue how to write a political struggle with intrigue into this storyline, but they're trying really hard. And Numenor is just this back-ass water place. It makes no sense that these are the greatest, most powerful human kingdom with the most. These are supposed to be long-lived, like the ancestors of Aragorn. They're supposed to be all Aragorns, these noble, powerful people who eventually, because of Sauron's corrupting influence, fall from grace, and the Numenor falls. But it's just already such a shit show there. The character Kemen goes back to Pelegrir and runs into Isildur. And this whole storyline is so bad also. Theo, Isildur, the new character Estrid, we get this romance between Estrid and Isildur that's he's helping her, now she's a bad guy, now she's helping them, so maybe she's not a bad guy, but then she pulls the sword on him, and now they're falling in love, but now she reveals that she has a husband or a fiancé or something, but then she reveals that no, she doesn't really like him, and so now they're gonna so they kiss, and it's what is this? What does this have to do with the whole story of the Rings. Why is she a character? Why do we need this at all? Like, Isildur is a really important character. Like, give him something interesting and meaningful. Don't give him this bullshit romance with a side character. A side piece. Anyways, okay, I have to stop. Terrible episode. I give it 2 out of 10. 1 point for the good stuff it did have in there, with the dwarves, with Sauron. 1 point for its technical stuff, like the music. I think Ben McCreary's score is pretty good. Not the best he's done, but pretty good. There's some nice visuals, some nice, the dwarven costumes and makeup and stuff is good. The orcs look pretty good. But everything else is just rubbish. Terrible writing, laughably cringy writing, bad casting choices for a lot of the actors. Really, 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 they spent like $4 hiring Jeff Bezos' grandson to write the script. It's embarrassing. The people involved with this should be embarrassed that it not only fails at Tolkien, but fails as generic epic fantasy as well, as though the people creating it have never actually participated in the fantasy genre. Like, they haven't actually read anything, because it's all these sort of bad tropes, and they just don't seem to understand what makes fantasy tick, let alone what makes Tolkien tick. And that is all I have to say about that. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Peace. With harp and hand and tales unfold, the legends sing their flight of dragons and enchanted lands where shadows turn to light. Oh, grand elf brave, we sing your name in tales of old, your glories fade.